I used to think our marriage sounded like a well-tuned room. The dishwasher's soft hush after dinner, her heels on the hallway hardwood, vinyl crackling under a Friday night jazz record. We had routines that looked like comfort from the outside. The cracks were quieter, new passwords, working dinners, a perfume that never lived on our dresser. I'm a contractor. I notice hairline faults before drywall actually splits. Still, I kept sanding the rough edges and painting over shadows, telling myself not to make a mess without proof. Proof came in a tuxedo. The party was one of those big city fundraisers where everyone pretends the shrimp tower isn't awkward, and a rented string quartet works overtime to make fluorescent light feel elegant. My wife, Lena, looked like a magazine cover. Silver dress, steady smile, a gaze that moved a second too fast. We'd been invited by a client of hers, a man whose name opened doors and whose laugh made assistants shrink. I'd met him twice. He'd called me buddy both times with a pat that lingered. We were near the bar when the room parted the way it does for a person who thinks the room exists for him. He cut through the chatter in a charcoal suit tailored to every ambition he'd ever had. He didn't look at me. He looked at Lena like he was checking something off a list. "Did you tell your loser husband you're staying with me tonight?" he said, loud enough for the nearest table to fall silent. Every head within 10 feet turned. Conversation snapped like rubber bands. The quartet missed a beat. He turned then, finally, and tapped my cheek with 2 fingers, a schoolyard gesture dressed in cufflinks. "And for you, bastard," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "A consolation prize. My secretary." A woman behind him, mid-30s, sharp-eyed, a lanyard tucked into a coat like a secret, went stiff. Her expression said she had collected years of his jokes like parking tickets. Lena's mouth opened, then closed. Her hand hovered between my sleeve and the air, not choosing either. I have been hit before. Life does that to you if you work with your hands and stand by your work. You learn that the wrong response gets you sued, and the right one gets you home. My father taught me a few practical moves, nothing dramatic, enough to keep a man from climbing further onto your chest. The room had given me the stage I didn't want. I stepped 1 pace in and let his hand land again, light as an insult. Then I moved. Simple. Controlled. I caught his wrist, turned it in a way that steals balance but not breath, and guided him down. 2 seconds, maybe less. The floor was there before he understood why. His grin left his face. The room exhaled a single collective sound. Security rushed in, black ties and urgent whispers. I lifted my hands, palms out, voice low. "We're done." They helped him up. He swayed, furious, humiliation running ahead of pain. He started to lunge again. A security guard slid between us, another hand on his shoulder. "Sir," the guard said, with that tone that asks if you'd like tonight to get smaller or bigger. He chose smaller. For now. I didn't look at Lena. I didn't look at the secretary whose eyes were wet with a complex relief I'd recognize in a mirror later. I adjusted my cuff, nodded to the guard, and walked toward the lobby the way you leave a church when you've heard all you need. Outside, the winter air felt like finally. I stood under a too bright entry light and texted my friend Josh. "Pick me up. Hotel Marlowe. 10 minutes. He replied with a thumbs up and, "You okay?" I sent back, "Steady." Through the glass, I watched the party try to heal. People went back to their jokes like divers returning to the surface. That's when my phone buzzed again. Not Josh. Unknown number. "I didn't deserve that," the voice said immediately, tight, female. "But he uses me like punctuation when he's bored. I'm not his anything." "The secretary," I said. "Coordinating producer. She corrected softly, but that's the name he prefers when he wants to feel taller. A beat. "My name is Claire." I looked through the glass again. She stood near the coat check, coat on now, phone to her ear, chin lifted the way people lift it when they've decided to stop apologizing for existing. "How did you get my number?" I asked. "You gave your card to the AV team last month," she said. "I keep details for people who treat staff like humans. Can you talk?" "My ride's in 5 minutes." "Then I'll be fast," she said. "You should know he's been meeting your wife at the Regent. Not tonight, not just tonight. Fridays. Room numbers change. Receipts do not." Her voice trembled once, then hardened. "I'm done being complicit because he signs my timesheets. The word complicit is a quiet brick." I leaned against the stone pillar and let it land. Why tell me now? Because watching a man crow about ruining another man's home while inviting me to be the party favor finally showed me what I've been helping him do, she said. And because he thinks he's untouchable. Men like that only stop when daylight shows up. Daylight, I repeated. A black SUV slid to the curb. Josh leaned across the passenger seat, window down. Get in, he called. Claire, I said into the phone. Do you want out? Yes, she said. The word sounded like someone had finally cut the ribbon holding a too-tight box. Then here's what I need, I said. Nothing illegal, no gossip, dates, times, public places, company expenses run through personal lines, and only what you have a right to have. I can do that, she said, breath steady now. And Jake? Yes. I'm sorry, she said. For your night, for all of it. Me too, I said, and slid into the truck. Josh didn't ask for the scene. He gave me the kind of look brothers give without sharing blood. Bar or bench? Bench, I said. I need a table and a pen. We went to the late-night diner that deserves a historical marker for saving men from mistakes. The coffee came honest and awful. I took a napkin and wrote the words that anchor me when everything else tries to float away. Don't make a mess. Make a record. We built a list. Steps, not swings. Freeze nothing yet. People scream when you slam doors. Start with what's ours. Pull phone logs. Pull bank statements. Pull doorbell cam clips. Save what's public. Request what's yours by right. Ask counsel before you act. And keep your hands clean. At home, the house smelled like citrus spray and pretense. Lena wasn't there yet. I clicked the doorbell camera app and watched the feed from the last 6 Fridays. Clothes change. Patterns don't. A car idled. A man in a charcoal overcoat with the exact stride of a person who mistakes applause for air. Lena leading him in with a glance at the lens she thought of only as a package guard. My jaw didn't clench. It felt more like something heavy had climbed down from my shoulders and settled on the table where I could see it. The front door opened an hour later. She came in composed, coat folded over her arm, face set in that carousel smile she used at holiday parties. You left, she said, as if I'd broken the choreography. I did, I said. He was out of line, she offered, annoyed on behalf of any audience that hadn't forgiven me yet. You didn't need to. Lena, I said gently. You don't have to grade my response. The duet is over. She blinked. The kitchen clock ticked between us. What does that mean? It means we're going to handle this like adults who remember paperwork exists, I said. I won't raise my voice. I won't break a glass. Tomorrow, you'll have a choice to make. Tonight, we both know more than we're saying. I'm tired of pretending not to hear the music. She looked at the counter like answers might line up next to the fruit bowl. Then she swallowed and went upstairs without a word. The bedroom door shut with the gentleness people reserve for things they still hope to keep. Sleep came in. Short, dry pieces. At 5 a.m., I emailed a lawyer a friend recommended. At 6, I opened a fresh folder titled Without Poetry, Documents. At 7, a message from an unknown address arrived. Claire had sent a single spreadsheet. Dates, calendar invites marked client dinner. Expenses coded hospitality billed to a corporate card that should never have touched boutique hotel bars. On a second sheet, 3 names. 2 colleagues who had left suddenly with new opportunities, and a compliance officer whose memo about fraternization had been quietly filed and ignored. The plan shaped itself like a building you understand, once you see the blueprint rotated the right way. This wasn't a brawl. It was load-bearing truth. I wasn't going to humiliate anyone with spectacle. I wasn't going to turn my life into a clip strangers stitched on social media. I would walk the boring road people underestimate. Proper complaints, neutral tone, receipts that can't blush. By 9, I had everything in a clean packet from my attorney and a separate, even cleaner packet addressed to the company's ethics hotline and board audit chair. No accusations, just dates, policy sections, and the line item every executive fears. Potential misuse of company funds in a personal relationship with a subordinate and a client's spouse. At 10, Lena came down with a practiced expression, like a dress she'd tailored. Contrition at the edges, defiance sewn into the seams. About last night, she began. About the last 6 Friday nights, I said, sliding the doorbell thumbnails across the island. The compliance team at your client's firm will see expense reports today. My counsel will contact you this afternoon with a list. House, accounts, a separation plan that doesn't turn our living room into a courtroom. You can choose honesty, and we make this efficient. Or you can choose theater, and the paperwork just takes longer. Her eyes flashed. You're going to ruin me. I'm going to stop letting you ruin me, I said. There's a difference. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She measured me like a problem set she could still solve if she found the right variable. When she realized I wasn't performing the role she'd written, a jealous fool, a screaming child, a man who would take the bait of one more insult, her mouth pressed into a line. You think you're noble, she said. No, I said. I think I'm done. We spoke in administrative terms after that. Who would pick up Moose from daycare? Who would email the utility companies what time she could come by with someone to pack her things without turning it into a spectacle? I was grateful for nouns. Verbs make a mess. At noon, I walked out with the packet to my attorney and handed the other one to a courier with instructions that would make a compliance inbox ring like a bell at 4. On the porch, Moose sat like a guard who knows the difference between guests and ghosts. I scratched his head and told him the truth out loud for the first time. We're okay. Josh texted, You want a sandwich or justice first? I answered, Always sandwich, then justice. He replied with a sandwich emoji and a gavel. The man understands sequence. At 3:59 p.m., I hovered over send to the board address and the hotline link, the cursor blinking like a tiny metronome. I thought about the man's pat on my cheek, about Claire's voice, about staffers who clean messes they didn't make, about the way a lie pretends to be an open marriage with only one invitation. I thought about the word daylight. At 4 p.m. exactly, I clicked. My phone buzzed almost instantly, an auto-reply acknowledging receipt from ethics compliance, followed by a calendar invite to confidential interview. 2 minutes later, a different buzz, a number labeled Robert. I let it ring. Upstairs, I heard drawers open and close, soft thuds into a suitcase. No shouting, no slammed doors, just the tidy end of a fiction that had run out of adverbs. That night, I stood at the sink and washed 2 glasses, one for me and one for the friend who would sit with me and say nothing profound and everything necessary. The jazz record spun. Moose snored. The house settled into itself, as if relieved we'd finally given it an honest plot. You wanted the punch, the teeth, the gasp. But revenge, at least the kind that lets you sleep, sounds different. Its forms filled out correctly, evidence sorted without malice, a clock striking the hour to tell you your aim wasn't heat, it was light. By the time the next morning rolled around, my inbox looked like a thunderstorm waiting to happen. 3 unread messages from the corporate compliance department, one from my lawyer confirming the submission had been received, and another from Claire. Hers was short. They opened an internal review this morning. He's panicking. HR has already pulled card records. Thank you for letting light in. I sat there at the kitchen table, the smell of burnt toast filling the air, realizing that I hadn't even needed to raise my voice. The truth had a way of screaming all by itself once it was set free. By 9 a.m., the phone calls began. Reporters, legal assistants, 2 colleagues asking if what they were hearing was true. Apparently, word had already leaked that Robert, the untouchable executive, was under investigation for misuse of corporate funds and unethical relations with subordinates and external partners. It didn't take long for those external partners to become the whispered code for my wife. Lena called me around lunchtime, voice trembling. Jake, they fired him. What did you do? I didn't do anything, I said, calm as stone. I just stopped cleaning up after other people's messes. She started to cry. They're questioning me. HR called. They're saying I violated client ethics policies. My career, my reputation. Maybe next time you'll think before you mix business and pleasure, I said evenly. Consequences aren't cruelty, Lena. They're the echo of choice. She hung up. By evening, I got another email from Claire. The subject line just said, it's done. In the body. He's been escorted out. They asked if I'd assist with the investigation, and I said yes. I gave them the reports, dates, and screenshots. Thank you for giving me the courage. I leaned back in my chair, a slow breath escaping. This wasn't joy. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was the quiet kind of relief that comes when a long, dishonest play finally drops its curtain. 2 days later, Lena showed up at the house. I saw her car through the window before she even knocked. She looked tired, eyes sunken, makeup smudged from too many sleepless nights. She was clutching a manila envelope and a cup of coffee like they were lifelines. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I stepped aside. She walked in and immediately noticed the boxes by the door. Her clothes, her books, everything I'd packed neatly. "So it's really over," she whispered. "It's been over for a long time," I said. "We just finally stopped pretending it wasn't." She set the envelope on the table. "I came to sign whatever you need. I can't fight anymore." I nodded. My lawyer had already prepared the divorce settlement. No shouting, no scandal, just clean lines. As she signed, her hands shook. "You really sent all that to his company?" "I sent the truth," I said. "What they did with it wasn't my business." She looked up, eyes red. "He's ruined, Jake. His wife left him. He lost his job. He's threatening to sue everyone. He said you destroyed his life." I stared at her for a long moment. "I didn't destroy it. He did that himself. I just stopped pretending I didn't see it happening." She swallowed hard. "And me?" "You destroyed what we had," I said quietly. "But I hope someday you build something real. With honesty this time." Her lip trembled. "You still think there's anything good left in me?" I hesitated. "Everyone deserves a chance to change. I just won't be standing next to you while you do it." She nodded, tears spilling freely now. "You were always better than me." "No," I said, shaking my head. "I was just consistent." She signed the last page, placed the pen down, and whispered, "Goodbye, Jake." Then she left. No drama, no last look. Just the quiet sound of a door closing for the final time. A week passed. The scandal spread through corporate circles like wildfire. The news blogs loved it. Top executive fired over affair with client's wife. My name wasn't mentioned, but anyone who knew. I didn't gloat, didn't comment, didn't even read most of the articles. But what made me pause was another headline 2 weeks later. Whistleblower employee praised for integrity during investigation. Claire's name was listed. She'd been promoted to a senior position. Her statement about workplace misconduct had triggered a policy overhaul. I smiled when I read it. Some good things really do rise from wreckage. A month later, she called. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "You changed more lives than you realize. HR implemented new protocols, and I finally feel free." I laughed softly. "So do I." We stayed in touch after that. Not romantically, not at first. Just two people who'd survived the same storm and learned to appreciate quiet weather. But peace has a way of growing roots when it's watered with truth. We started grabbing coffee, then dinners. Then one night, after a long conversation about everything and nothing, she reached across the table and took my hand. "You ever think about how strange it is," she said, "that sometimes the worst people we meet push us straight toward the right ones?" I smiled. Every day. We didn't rush anything. Healing takes time. But for the first time in years, I felt something genuine again. Not fire, not fury, just warmth. 6 months later, we went to a small concert in the park. No tuxedos, no scandals, no pretending. She leaned her head on my shoulder as the sun went down, and I realized I hadn't thought about Lena or Robert in weeks. They had become background noise, static from an old station I'd finally stopped tuning into. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It's about outliving their chaos and walking into a life they can't touch. As I drove home that night, the air smelled like rain and possibility. Moose barked as I walked through the door, tail wagging, house peaceful. I poured a glass of bourbon, looked out the window, and whispered to myself, "That's enough." Because real revenge isn't the moment they fall. It's the moment you finally stop caring that they did. About 3 months after the chaos died down, I finally stopped checking my phone every morning expecting a new headline or message from Lena. The dust had settled, life had shifted into something calm, something quieter. But peace never stays untested for long. It was a Saturday afternoon when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Claire was out visiting her sister, and Josh never knocked. He just barged in with takeout. Moose barked once and then wagged his tail curiously. When I opened the door, I froze. Standing there was a woman in her early 40s, wearing a navy coat, her hair tied back neatly. Her eyes, cold, sharp, but tired, locked on mine. "Jake?" she asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "I'm Emily," she said. "Robert's wife." I blinked, unsure what to say. "You better come in." She hesitated, then stepped inside, looking around as if expecting to see some version of me that fit the stories her husband must have told. She sat on the edge of the couch, posture perfect, voice steady. "I know you probably don't owe me anything, but I needed to hear your side." I poured her some water and sat across from her. "You already know what happened," I said. "I know what the papers said," she replied. "I know he was fired, and that he'd been seeing your wife. What I don't know is why you went through all the trouble to expose him, instead of just walking away." I studied her face for a long moment before answering, because walking away without truth isn't peace. It's pretending, and I'd done enough pretending to last a lifetime. She nodded slowly. "He still denies everything, even with the evidence, says it was a setup, says your wife pursued him." I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Classic Robert. Never wrong, just misunderstood. Her lips pressed together. "He's living in a rental now, drinking more than ever. You destroyed his reputation, you know that?" I met her gaze, unflinching. "No, Emily, he did that. I just stopped covering for it." She looked at the floor, her voice softer now. "I'm not here to blame you. Honestly, I wanted to say thank you. I found messages, accounts, pictures. Turns out I wasn't the first wife he humiliated, just the last one who didn't see it coming. You saved me from wasting another decade on him." That caught me off guard. "You're welcome," I said after a pause. She stood, smoothing her coat. "I hope you find someone better," she said. "Someone who doesn't mistake loyalty for weakness." "I already did," I said quietly. She smiled faintly and left without another word. When the door clicked shut, I exhaled deeply. Closure, it seemed, came in waves. Unexpected visitors, half-finished apologies, and moments that reminded you how far you'd come from the fire. That evening, Claire came by. I told her about Emily's visit. She listened quietly, her expression unreadable. "Do you regret it?" she finally asked. "Exposing them?" I asked. "No. But I do regret the years I spent being blind to what was right in front of me," she nodded. "That's not weakness, Jake. That's faith. You gave her the benefit of the doubt until she didn't deserve it." I smiled faintly. "You sound like my therapist." She laughed. "Maybe I missed my calling." Life settled into a rhythm after that. Claire and I grew closer, though we never rushed anything. I think we both carried too many ghosts to leap straight into another fire. Still, there was a peace between us, an unspoken understanding that neither of us needed to pretend. About a year later, I got a letter in the mail, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Lena. "Jake, I heard about Claire and you. I'm glad you found someone who treats you the way I should have. I wanted to say I'm sorry, not for getting caught, but for forgetting what love looked like when I had it. You didn't deserve what I did to you, and I'll carry that regret for the rest of my life. Lena." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer with the rest of the old life. Documents, photos, the remnants of a story that no longer belonged to me. That night, as Claire and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she asked, "Do you ever think about what you'd say to her if you saw her again?" I thought for a moment. "Yeah, I'd tell her thank you." Claire looked surprised. "For what?" "For teaching me the difference between being needed and being respected," I said. "For showing me that revenge isn't about breaking someone. It's about rebuilding yourself stronger than they imagined." She smiled softly and leaned her head on my shoulder. "That's a good lesson." "Yeah," I said. "A painful one, but a good one." The wind carried the smell of jasmine from the yard, and for a long while, neither of us spoke. It wasn't silence. It was peace. Months later, Robert's name appeared in the news again. Something about bankruptcy, an investigation into financial misconduct. I didn't read the whole article. I didn't need to. Karma, it seemed, had better timing than I ever could. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel pity. I just turned off my phone, looked out at the evening light, and realized that his downfall wasn't my victory. It was just the universe finishing what it started. That night, before bed, I opened my journal, the same one I'd started the day I swapped fury for focus, and wrote a single line: "Revenge ends when peace begins." Because in the end, the real story wasn't about what I did to them, it was about what I finally did for myself. And that, I realized, was the best ending I could have ever written. If you were in my place that night at the party, when he humiliated you in front of everyone, what would you have done? Would you have walked away quietly, or exposed them both like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed this story of betrayal, truth, and redemption, don't forget to now like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories every week.